YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy Lord, and I'm back again with another video. Hey, y'all like, comment, share, subscribe if you do like the video. I want to get into Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes. They sit down again, or not again, for the first time. I believe this is the first time that they've had a chit chat. This has been brewing for a hot minute. This has been in the making. So, Nick Fuentes has a lot of controversial takes on race, politics, our foreign policies with American Israel. He's going to go in on this video basically about race in Africa and the differences between race. I thought this was an interesting conversation. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video.
So you don't think that there's group differences on average between the races?
I think, just to be clear, I think there would be group differences if you took it, like we were talking about, an American versus somebody who graduates college in Europe. There'd be tremendous differences.
Not tremendous, but yeah, there would be slight differences.
Yeah.
But you don't think that racially there's differences between races?
I think, yeah, because we have huge differences culturally. So going to your point of saying, I don't want to live in a black neighborhood, well, neither does LeBron James when he gets money, right? There's a reason for that, because there is something that's happening culturally in Black America that's been going on for a very long time. But that thing, I would argue, didn't exist in...
What about in Africa and Haiti? I mean, they're killing and eating each other in Africa and Haiti. Everywhere where they are, you have these problems.
Yeah,
Okay, that's a good point by Nick Fuentes. But I think Candace right here, she kind of climbs onto the ship. She kind of climbs up just a little bit and gives a little pushback. But you'll see right here, Candace knows a little something, but she doesn't know enough. Shame on her, though, for not being prepared for this video with Nick Fuentes, because she really could have hammered home a great point, but I think she kind of misses the boat right here.
I'd like to look into, and I'm pleading ignorant, but I've heard some things about what happened in Haiti and what the Clinton Foundation did there. So I think I'd have to look more into the history of Haiti to be able to push back on that at all. I don't think I agree with that.
What about all of Africa then? There's not one country in sub-Saharan Africa that's successful. Not one. They're all least developed countries. They're all failed states.
That's not true. That is not true. Nick Fuentes told an absolute lie. You got Nigeria, one of the biggest places, one of the large tech hubs in Nigeria. I think they call it Nollywood. They got a lot of stuff going on there. You got Ghana, which was one of the, I believe it was voted one of the safest places a few years back in the world, not just on the continent, I believe. They have plenty of buildings and lights and all, just like any other country. You got Nairobi, Kenya, which is known as a very nice city. You have Rwanda as one of the cleanest places to live. You have South Africa. Yes, we know was more developed by white South Africans. There's a mix of African people in South Africa. I believe you have the Khoisan people, the Chinese black folks. They have the little Asia. You got a lot of Congolese and West Africans there, and you also have the white people who come from Europe or whatnot. But there's plenty of development on the continent. I don't know why this is just an easy Google search, that he could have did. But Nick is very disingenuous when it comes to Africa and black people even.
Kind of reminds me, and we could kind of flesh out this conversation together, and I'm not perhaps ready to have it fully, but I do remember going back to Dave Smith where he was conceding a point on, well, all of these other Middle Eastern countries, no, you wouldn't want to live there. You'd want to live in Israel. In my mind, I'm going, well, because you just keep bombing the crap out of them if they ever try to get ahead. I remember watching this clip of him saying that, going, why don't these countries get ahead? And kind of going back in my mind to the Gaddafi speech where he's speaking essentially about, here's what we got to do in Libya to get ahead. Here's what we're going to do with the dollar, and we're going to be progressive and this and that. and they killed him. And then what happened to those Libyan refugees? Suddenly they're now pouring into, just like he said was going to happen, that they were now pouring into the European continent, and Europeans are complaining, who are these people? And so the question is, are we allowing, because I'm like, Africa's a pretty rich country. Like, why aren't Africans controlling the diamond trade? Who's taking all of the diamonds so that they can't control the diamond trade? And how long have these people been doing that, being essentially culture vultures? That's kind of the journey that I've been on now, in terms of really trying to go back and look into history to see what's happened. And I never trust myself when I have a perspective now, because I realize how much of my opinions and beliefs were shaped by the public school system. And so I don't think you're right. I think that there has been a very sophisticated effort to, just like you would say now, in terms of people that are intentionally attacking Anglo-Saxons. I'm just learning about that there were these books that were written to, we must genocide the Anglo-Saxons, that were going on for a lot longer than I realized. History didn't begin with World War II, but I think it would take a lot of time to kind of unpack that.
Yeah.
Like, are we stopping?
Let me just pause it just a little bit. I like where she's going with this, but I'm just going to pause it just for a second, just to give it a little time, because I don't want a copyright strike. And I don't even know if this video will be even, I don't even know if they're going to let me play it, but because it does have Nick Fuentes, but damn it, I'm going to try it. I might block his face out, to be honest.
People from getting ahead just because, I don't know.
That just sounds, I mean, being honest with you, that just sounds to me like a left-wing argument when they say, why don't these countries get ahead? Colonialism, you're a colonizer. It's like, okay, but when we got there, they had no development. When we got to Africa, they had no technological development.
So you think that even if we weren't at war, and sure, you could say that you think that's a leftist. Okay,
so that's funny right there, because Nick Fuentes likes to blame the Jews for a lot, right? He would say they did 9/11. They are the cause for the degradation or the degeneracy here in America, with porn industry destroying young white men, liberalism destroying white women, and things of that nature. But when it comes to Africa or blacks, if we mention, hey, these social programs and integration that basically took things out of the community, and the bombing of black businesses and cities, or I wouldn't say cities, maybe hubs back in the day, it didn't slow the progress down. He can see it for the white people here in America, but when it comes to the blacks or Africa, well, it's a liberal argument. That's what he says. But I just find that interesting. It just shows, and I like Nick Fuentes. I think he's pretty dope on a lot of things. He can go too far, but I think he's being very disingenuous. You can't, on one hand, say that the Jews are destroying America or white folks, but when it comes to black people in African countries, that America and other Western powers, and including the Jewish people who are of European descent, or they are Europeans, that when they destroy Africa, that is a liberal argument, because you did have Muammar Gaddafi trying to establish an African dollar and to take hold of the resources. You had that one president a few years ago during COVID. I can't think of his name in which country, but I remember he was saying that COVID was not real. He ended up passing away. You had the president, or I don't know if they're prime ministers or presidents, but over there in Haiti, he was not with the COVID vaccine and pushing it through this country. And he supposedly was killed by some Dominicans and other Western people that they say ran up in there to kill him over regime change. So there is a concerted effort to keep these countries down. And they are not that old. A lot of these countries are maybe 60 to 70 years old. If you think about the founding of America and all of the fighting and the destroying that they had to do, or that we had to do here to become where we are now, the civil wars, the fights amongst states and cities and peoples in those states and cities, it took a lot to get here. It didn't happen overnight, and it damn for sure didn't happen in 60 years. And one thing America has had the privilege of is not being invaded by other countries and being told what to do, how to think, and how to move about life. So that is very interesting by Nick Fuentes to just omit this simple knowledge that he knows, he'll mention it sometimes on his show. So I just find that crazy by him, but I'll let him continue.
Argument. I would only push back on that because I've learned so much about just like recent history that I didn't know. But you think that the Middle East, like if we had done nothing in terms of the Middle East, that they would just be savages and just be like, America didn't do anything it doesn't set anything backwards, and you're just like bombing a place.
Yeah, kind of. I think that we did set them back because when they don't have political order, it prevents development and investment and things like that. But again, when you look at the antecedents of all these, the history didn't start, like you said, with World War II in the 20th century. There's a reason that European civilization created this enormous gap between them and everybody else. And I don't think it was that it was white supremacy or it was unfair or something like that. I think it's because Europeans are smarter.
All right, so let's wrap this up with a bow on the top. So in conclusion to that clip, Nick Fuentes says that even before there was colonialization, that Africans were doing nothing. They were just walking around, dick swinging, coochies out, titties out, and living in huts. Let's not mind the books of Timbuktu, the Portuguese going into West Africa saying that there are West African Jews here and stealing the gold and the things that they built in those countries, or not countries, but those areas when they got there, stealing the artifacts and still having them in museums to this day. Why have artifacts in museums of a people who did nothing, who they just sat around and ooga booga booga themselves to death, right? You had the Benin Empire, where the British were trading and doing business with the Benin Empire for years until they got greedy and wanted more. And Benin, which is modern day Nigeria, or a part of Nigeria, they said, no, we don't want to do all of that you have, you're trying to place on us. And they went into Benin, fought the people, killed and slaughtered with their guns, because that's the biggest thing for the European is the gun. They have the gun and they have the bombs. That's just a fact. That's the biggest thing that they introduced to the world. Without that, there probably would be no colonization, because the fight, it'd be a different type of fight, right? So you have places like that. You have Egypt. Many will say Egypt is not Africa, but let me put this with you. Nick Fuentes is a Catholic Christian, right? He's a Catholic who believes in the Bible. Roughly, Catholics are very iffy when it comes to the Bible. They're into the church fathers and what their church fathers say about the Bible. Not exactly on what it says, but in the Bible, it says the father of the Hamitic people, which we agree, or everybody has come to the consensus that Ham is Africa, right? Ham is the progenitor or the father of the Africans. It says Egypt Canaan, Libya, Ethiopia. I believe it's another one I might be forgetting, but these are like the 4 names that are like the father or the progenitor of all of the other African tribes amongst the continent. If Egypt is one of those and it's a dark place, a dark people, how come it is that you don't apply that when you start going in there and tearing it up and the cutting off the noses of the statues, and now you're saying that, oh, there were no dark people. The only dark people that came through here were the people below the Nile Valley, as they say, the Nubians, who came to visit and learn amongst the lighter skinned Egyptians that they're claiming are of Arab and Grecian descent, right? Those are the Grecians and the Romans that mixed and lived in that northern part of Africa, not the actual black Africans or the very reddish brown ones who you can still see to this day with the curls and the drip that you see on a lot of those paintings in Africa. They have that hairstyle, but they don't attribute that to them because a lot of the colonialization will say there's nothing good coming from these people, and they did a lot of this purposely to hide the greatness of what these people have done. You know, I know a lot of people say, well, why haven't they built the pyramids again? There's something that happened in Egypt, I believe, and you know, all of the fighting and the conquests, and in my opinion, I believe God destroyed Egypt for the things that they did in the past. If you read the Bible, right? So even Europeans or the Western world cannot replicate what was in Egypt. They've tried; they don't even understand the technology, right? So this ancient people. If the Egyptians even built it, those pyramids could have been there before the fall of man or the Noah's flood, right? This might be vastly ancient. But I say all that to say is Africa has a lot of great history, a lot of things, and there were plenty of written languages and all of these things. There was wills, you know, throughout Africa. Not every African people are the same. They have the most diverse genetics in the world, I believe. So the Ethiopian and the Egyptian are not the same, just like the Nigerian and the Sudanese people are not the same. These people look different. You got the Khoisan people down in South Africa with the very Asiatic eyes. The only thing most people on Africa's continent have in common is that they vary in brown skin. So you got super dark brown that we call black today, and you have a mid-tone brown, lighter brown, reddish, ruddy looking brown, but nonetheless, you know, we just label it under the umbrella of being black. But in closing, Candace was not prepared for this interview. Nick Fuentes just regurgitated a lot of Eurocentric colonial superiority conversation, right? He didn't really give a lot of insight on history, and he never does. I would like to see him debate somebody who's actually a expert in the field of Africa, in the history of and things of that nature. So I'll close it out here. Y'all tell me what you think about the interview. Was it a good interview? Did Candace actually defend the topics that she came to defend? Did she do any justice? Did Nick Fuentes or do you think Nick Fuentes was on the money with all the stuff he said? Maybe Africa is a shithole just based off genetics, because the poor old nigga and the black African aren't worth a damn, and maybe those Arabs in those Muslim countries are shit too, even forgetting about the Ottoman Empire and all of these other empires. But y'all let me know in the comment section below. Y'all subscribe and like it if you enjoy this video, and I'll get back at y'all in another one. Peace.